We're going to start the planning board hearing. Is there anybody in the audience recording this? Okay. All right, we're going to start first of all with A&Rs. Do we have any A&Rs?
We do not.
Okay. I think the first hearing is at 7 o'clock will be the applicant Masad Family LLC requesting a modification of the approval site plans as allowed under section 3.2.6.3 of the Auburn zoning bylaws for the property located at 50 Faith Avenue, Auburn, Mass. Map 55, parcels 1, 2, 3, 181 and 182. Map 60, parcels 12, 15, and 16. And map 61, parcel 16. I think we can,
You can stipulate to it as it's written.
okay, we have the second hearing here. We're gonna lump these together?
Yeah, well, they're the same property, so you can hear them together. You'd issue separate decisions upon
All right.
voting.
And the second applicant, Massett Family LLC Diamond Service Facility, requesting the approval of a definitive subdivision plan for the property located at 50 and 51 Faith Avenue and 768 Washington Street, map 55, parcels 1, 2, 3, 181 and 182, map 61, parcels 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 68. Okay. Is there somebody here for that?
Yeah, that's me. Mike Scott, Waterman Design Associates.
Okay. Come on, sit down.
Thank you.
I think we were expected to be here to provide an update as to how this project is proceeding. I think the application was probably filed better part of a year ago at this point. March of
last year.
2013. I think Joe Simon of Diamond was in probably in November, early December, sometime thereabouts, to give you an update. And where things stand is we're still dealing with the Conservation Commission relative to the permitting through their commission. We had intended to be at last week's commission meeting so that we could be at tonight's meeting to give you an idea of how they reacted to a bunch of new information that was supposed to have been filed early January. It's going in this week. We are going to be on their next agenda next Wednesday. That's been confirmed. It's anticipated that the intent of the new information is to demonstrate to them that, one, the original submittal, the plans that you've been reviewing, that Graves Engineering has reviewed, that the design where the road was located is acceptable or should be acceptable to the commission. The DEP rendered an opinion through their district office sometime apparently in the summer. It didn't make its way to our side of the table until around Thanksgiving, however. So that being said, what we understand is the commission has the authority to review and approve the plans as submitted, albeit with probably some minor modifications to things like the wetland replication and some construction protocols relative to things that are relative to the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act. But with respect to the location of the road, with respect to the engineering involved, there doesn't need to be any changes, and we're going to present that to the commission next week. The applicant, the Massett's, contracted with 2 additional wetland folks sometime around Thanksgiving. We met with Adam, myself and one of those individuals, and the applicant met with Adam on the 12th of December. And again, we talked about, to some extent, the new information that was going to be presented, the schedule. The schedule fell apart thanks to weather and Christmas and the other holidays. But we do intend to be, we will be at the commission's meeting next week to present this new information. We hope and trust that they'll agree with us that they can accept it, that they can then vote up or down or request modification to the design that we submitted. But rather than deny it or dismiss it out of hand as they had earlier in the summer, we think that they can act, and we trust that they're going to find that way. And we can be back to you after that meeting to either say, yep, the road is good and we have some minor modifications to make, or the commission is still not of a mind to approve it, and there may need to be wholesale changes. But right now, we're proceeding with the presumption that the commission can and will act on the application with the road in the location that was originally filed.
When would you be ready to come back
Well,
here for some kind of finalization.
I mean, we'll know Wednesday night, next Wednesday night, how they react. My expectation is they aren't gonna approve it out of hand, but that they will make some recommendations. We would probably need 2 to 4 weeks to get it back to Graves and their consultant in order to get comments. So I would hope by the end of February, be in a position to be here in front of you and actually have you.
Why don't we decide on the time, depending on the rest of the board, how they feel about it, but why don't we set a new date for the first meeting in March?
First meeting in March.
How does that go with you on that?
It's fine with
Huh?
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're gonna do then is we're gonna postpone this till the first meeting in March, which will be somewhere around March 8th, maybe?
I'll tell you in a minute. Maybe. March, first meeting in
March
March would be the
11th.
11th.
11th?
Yep.
Okay, and we can put it on the agenda for 7 o'clock? Is that all right with the rest of the
Yeah.
board?
That works.
Okay, would somebody?
Is that too far out for you?
How many times, how many times have I said no?
Well, the end of listen, you said the end of February.
That's
This is
reasonable.
gonna give you another 10, 12 days or whatever, okay?
Perfect.
It's only fair to, go the extra yard
Make
there.
a motion to,
Well, you wanna make a motion to
make
do
a
that?
motion here in March 11th.
Yeah, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is a vote. See you March
All right,
11th.
we'll get information. I will call Adam Thursday to give
If
him an
there's any
update.
changes,
Yeah.
Just
we
try
can
to-
get it.
We will.
try to be upfront
Been
and
Yeah.
slow and
we
unpleasant, but I think we're finally back in gear now.
we understand that,
Okay,
all right?
thank you.
Okay. Okay, we have a 7:05 hearing, the planning board under general laws, chapter 41 and 81U. Call a hearing to claim the surety posted for the completion of work associated with Old Cart Road subdivision. Okay, what do we need on that?
Well, Mr. Johnson is here. You'll remember maybe about a year ago, this time of year, Mr. Johnson came in and said he's not going to complete the work on Old Cart Road. He wants the town to take his money and he wants to be disassociated with the subdivision. It fell off my radar for a little bit working with town council. He can voluntarily turn it over. We still have to hold the hearing. So essentially, we're just going to go through the Mass General Law process. We hold this hearing. We're going to provide Mr. Johnson with a certified letter outlining the items that we feel need to be completed in order for the road to be accepted by the town. He's already indicated he's not going to do the work based on the value of it. So after the expiration of the 45 days, the town will claim the money and we'll move forward with accepting it as petitioning to accept it as a town road at the annual town meeting. And at that point, the DPW can bolster Mr. Johnson's funds with the town funds to do the work that's required. I think as way of a little bit of history, Old Cart Road is this nice little needle eye, and the section from now, I'll zoom out a little bit so everybody can see. Oh, not that far. So once this loads, you'll notice Mayfield Road leads out to Inwood, which leads out to Bryn Mawr. So everybody's oriented north is towards the top of the screen. The southern portion of the road was the first part that was constructed, I believe, to about number 15 was accepted by the planning board, but not by the town back in the mid to late 80s. The money that the town still holds, Mr. Johnson had originally put up to secure that portion of road. The board at that time said that they felt that construction was done to standard. They accepted that portion of road. Mr. Johnson moved on to secure the remainder of the road with the funds that we still hold. 30 years ago, That amount of money probably would have secured the road with construction standards, materials costs, labor costs, etc. That value has certainly increased. There's a number of treatments that need to be done to different parts of the road. The original part of the road has started to develop some alligator cracking. It has some other issues that the town would probably look to resolve if they were going to complete the road. This portion of the road has some other minor issues, and then the northern portion of the road is, if I'm not mistaken, just at binder course at this time. So all of these issues would look to be resolved. I can't at this time put a schedule for the town's completion of it. I imagine that with the funds that we have today, we're probably looking sometime in construction season 15, but that would have to be confirmed with the DPW director, and clearly priorities are going to be based on the schedule that he has and how he has things rolled out. But the acceptance of this as a town road would allow the town to expend Chapter 90 funds on it.
I think most of the people that have come regarding the Old Cart Road, I would assume, are sitting in the audience now. I think one of the main questions, I've talked to some of the people down there through friends and relatives, etc. Their main concern was that because of the disparity between the original bond and the new updated price to do the road, their main concerns were probably not exactly when it was going to be done, but whether they were going to have to take money out of their own pockets to make up the disparity. And the answer to that, I can well assure you, is no.
No, and like the conversation that's been had is these bonds are put in place, and when they're placed, they're supposed to be adequate to cover the construction that remains on the roadway. This subdivision has sort of been around for a long while. I guess the road's old enough to drink at this point. So in looking at it with the DPW, they felt that rather than trying to force Mr. Johnson to do the work or trying to squeeze the residents for the money, the most logical thing to do for the health of the road and the town is to take the funds that are there and use them as a magnifier for town funds. So it's part of a program the DPW is working towards, taking private roads that for one reason or another haven't been accepted through the subdivision process, getting them accepted and then looking to get them into the pipeline of reconstruction, maintenance, and modification, and that's sort of where we are with Old Cart. So we're not coming after residents for betterment funds or any of that kind of stuff. It's going to be done through the road program with the addition of the funds that we currently hold.
Does that answer your questions?
Was that including where the sidewalk stops now? I don't know if you know anything about it at all. If the
You-
sidewalk stops at a certain point, was that supposed to continue along? Because if people are gonna do their driveways over or something, everybody's kind of like, I don't want to touch it until we find out what's going to be done.
Well, if you could just state your name and address for the record, so that we can properly put you in the minutes.
Dan Young, 37 Old Cart Road.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Sidewalks, if they don't exist, they probably won't be added.
They're there now.
But as far as updating them, I would have to check with the DPW director. I don't want to give you an
They're
answer.
to a certain point. They're to the point where you said it's where it's now just the base coat.
Okay.
Okay, and that's where also the sidewalk stops. And I was just wondering if if that's the end of the sidewalk, or is the sidewalk going to be continued when the road is?
I would imagine the DPW will not construct a new sidewalk, but I'm not going to say that definitively. I think that's something I'd have to.
Not a new one. I didn't know if they would, where they're going with the new road. Just continue the sidewalk.
Yeah, well, but that would be new sidewalk. If it's
Okay.
not on the site already, I
got
don't
you.
think that they'll
It
add
is not
new.
there now, it
Yeah,
stops.
that would be my guess, especially
Okay.
since, if I'm not mistaken, Mayfield doesn't currently have sidewalks. Or Mayfield has sidewalks, does it go out to
Mayfield
Inwood?
has sidewalks.
Okay.
Mayfield has
Well, and again,
sidewalks.
we could check with the DPW director. If you want to contact me tomorrow, I can try and get in touch with him and put you two together, and it's
I was
ultimately gonna be up to
It's
them.
just a point
Yeah,
regarding
no,
the whole project.
sure, and I understand your
I'm
point, I don't know how much they'll do as far as
So that would
adding.
include, because there's a certain amount of land there. that
Correct.
We maintain now, but if the sidewalk's going there, that's gonna cut into, well, not our property, it isn't our property.
Sure.
It's actually for the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, I think that's what it was planned for. And I was just wondering if, when they do this, if they're gonna continue the sidewalk or maybe not.
Well, he's gonna get you that
Thank
answer,
you.
okay? Mr. Royan, state your address.
Chris, how you doing? Chris Horian, 35 Old Cut Road. I guess I'm asking the obvious question, at least in my mind, is why didn't the town request to increase the bond during the most recent building or permitting process?
You know something? We don't have an answer to that. We couldn't even get you an answer to that. That all stemmed around the inspectional services at that time, okay? This is
I'm
30
not asking an
years ago.
insulting question, I'm just
No, I
asking
understand that.
it's
No, I
an obvious
understand that.
question.
But you're asking a question I can't give you an answer to. If you want me to try to get an answer for that, I mean, I'd be glad to try to, but I don't have the answer. Does anybody else on this board have an answer to that one?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
I put in, the bond was originally for that section was $20,000, okay? But with the interest, it's up to $30,000. And I'm willing to add 10,000 of that to go towards the street. So we're increasing the bond $10,000. So the bond.
I don't think that answers that question.
No.
But
I'm just, no, my question is.
you wanted to know why all this took place.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, hold on, the purpose, as I understand it, of a bond is to protect the town, correct?
Right?
So at some point during this process, that process broke down. I don't know why, I'm just trying to understand the process. And I'm just trying to get an understanding of where the process failed and why the town ultimately, we lost our protection.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I think what happened was, long ago, subdivision control didn't generally have a time limit on construction. So somebody would come in and they would get a bond approved. So Mr. Johnson stated he had the bond for $20,000, which was equivalent to the amount of work to be done on the portion of road that remains. So at that time, all of those lots were released from the covenant that prevents construction on them. So that $20,000 was in place in the 80s at a value that was equivalent to the work to be done. So Mr. Johnson was free and clear to pull building permits to construct those houses. The two processes had been severed at that point. So because the bond was in place, they were able to release those lots, and the subdivision went on longer than the growth built into that bond. The way the subdivision regs are written currently, there's a 2-year time limit for the completion of infrastructure that's installed as part of a subdivision. So that's where it broke down. They didn't force him to finish the construction of the road in a finite period of time. So the bond was such that it was able, through inflation, to be outgrown by the cost of the work to be done. At this point, there's a 2-year time limit with the ability for extensions to be done. The granting of an extension would be the point where this board could approach the developer and say, all right, well, we see that you've gotten to this point or you haven't gotten to this point. We'd like a new estimate on the value of the work based on current weighted bid prices, and we'd like you to increase your surety to that value. So I hopefully that answers your question.
No, it does, and I think that protects us today. There obviously was a breakdown
there was a break, like I told you to begin with, there was a breakdown at the time on the inspectional end of it. In other words, if, at that time, if they had done things, you know, on a constant basis, that would have been taken care of. But it wasn't. So the planning board, at the last meeting that this came up, the planning board said, why should the people on Old Cart Road suffer because of a breakdown in whatever happened with the town? So we, at that time, agreed to do what we're doing now, so that the people on Old Cart Road would get their road completed, road accepted, and be happy, okay? Without reaching in your right pocket, like you so many times have to do, and pull out the money for the disparity between the road repairs as it stands now and the road repairs as the bond stood back 30 years ago. So that's what we tried to do for the people on Old Cart Road. And I think we were successful doing it.
No, thank you, and that's a great answer, and you answered my question. One more question. From a timeline perspective, does this process normally take a year or two? I mean, from a,
It does, because of the fact that the Chapter 90 money is doled out in yearly,
I'm well aware of Chapter 90.
you know? Well, that's what happens,
I know.
okay?
I
So
know about
the
Chapter
Chapter 90 money, it's up to the highway superintendent, okay, the DPW director, on what's done and when it's done. So we have to, you know, it might take, like he said, I think, what, 2015?
That, and again, I'm estimating. I don't know what. And again, if this had been a failure of Mr. Johnson in a time frame where the bond would cover it, the work would be done in more expeditiously, because we're looking to insert town funds. It muddies the waters a little bit.
Go ahead,
Hi.
name?
Tina Glotis, I live at 39 Old Cart Road.
Mm-hmm.
Without rehashing the old and going forth, you know, in hopefully a positive manner here, and kind of reiterating what Mr. Young said with regard to the sidewalks. I've got 41 next to me, Old Cart Road, and the sidewalk ends there. In front of my house, I have a 4-inch deep puddle when it rains. So I was just wondering if it could be noted, I don't know, in the minutes or of sorts, that it could properly be graded, because when guests come to the house, they can't park in front of the driveway, they have to like go on the grass to get to the front door. And I was just also wondering, are they just going to put a top coat? I'm not familiar with construction of sorts, but if they're just gonna put a top coat on, I know you said they would kind of fix the mistakes, but I also walk the dog. I have a small little Shih Tzu, and there's a couple holes that he could just fall into right now.
No, they're not going to go out and just put a skim coat on. What they'll do is they'll assess the condition of the road. They'll identify what they think is necessary to get it to the point where the road's going to have a usable life of, you know, 10 or 15 years. If there's a hole, and again, I'm not an engineer, I'm not road construction, but generally what they'll do is they'll cut a square, they'll dig it out, they'll put the base, they'll basically patch the hole. They'll put some binder over it, and then they'll top the whole thing. They don't want to do the minimal amount of work. They want to do the minimal amount of work, but they want it to have the maximum life. So they don't want to come out and do full depth reconstruction all around, nor do they just want to do a skim coat. They want to do what's appropriate for each section of road to make it last in a decade or so.
Yeah, and I thank you for that answer, but I guess too, I'm wondering, will they do that now? Because it is a safety concern for children. A child, an adult could fall in the hole and hurt themselves.
I'll tell you what I'll do for you. I'll talk to Mr. Coyle personally tomorrow, okay? And I will express your concerns to Mr. Coyle.
Okay, thank you.
And if you will, at the end of this meeting, if you give your phone number or whatever to the secretary here, I'd be more than happy to have Mr. Coyle or somebody in his office call you, and you can discuss the emergency part of the repair. And maybe it's something they can come over and temporarily take care of for you, so that there won't be a safety issue.
I just wouldn't want to see anyone get hurt.
That's
The
all right.
town be
And-
liable.
I don't have a problem doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not, it's a matter of a couple of words.
Well, what I can also say to that is there's currently, I'm not sure if it's a policy or a bylaw, the town can only spend $500 a year on a private road. So until the town meeting accepts it, it remains a private road. After the expiration of the 45 days of notice to Mr. Johnson, the town takes control of the road through the bond seizure. So there's sort of a gray area in there in which the town may be able to expend more than the 500. Depending on the size of the holes, the number of them, that 500 threshold might not be reached. So after Mr. Rothera speaks to the DPW director, he may come out and do some of the work. If he doesn't do it all, that's a sort of a quick explanation of why it may not have been done wholly at the front end. Just so you don't think that they decided to only do a little bit of
We'll
it.
try to mitigate the safety issue.
Thank you, I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Mr. Johnson?
I will take care of it myself. I'll go look at it. I'm gonna be up here for a few days. And if I had known it was that bad where somebody could fall in it, we would have taken care of it. And I didn't know about it, and I will look at it tomorrow. And I will take care of it.
All right.
And because it was on the upper street, we had a problem with that, and I spent $4,500 fixing that. And we also put in, down the bottom of the hill, they claimed on the drainage that somebody had built a shed right over where the pipe ran between two lots. And we dug that all up and replaced that, so I will look at it tomorrow.
All right, thank you. Name?
Stan Casillo at number 20 Old Cart Road.
Mhm.
And I have kind of a similar personal request to, it really has to do with an apron, what I determined was called an apron, on the lot above me, the driveway above me at number 18. When the water comes down the street, it actually comes onto my property. It goes on their driveway
Hmm.
and into my front lawn, and
How long has this been happening?
it's been happening quite a few years.
Okay.
I called in, and I think this is the time to bring it up.
Yeah.
It did have an apron originally on number 18.
Mm.
They redid their driveway.
Mm.
They ripped it out, but it's getting worse.
Well, you know, you've put up with this for a few years already, okay? More than a few, probably. We'll make a note on that, and I'll also discuss that with Mr. Coyle too, okay? And we'll see what, we'll see if that falls under anything that is to be done by you, or it's gonna have to be taken care of by the owner that did whatever he did, okay? I'm not familiar with that, I'm not an engineer, okay? So I couldn't tell you that. I'll look into it and get you an answer on that. Can I promise you any definitive repair on that? No, I can't. Go ahead.
What I'll say to a lot of these, you know, the puddle at the end of the driveway, the apron issue, we can take note of these now, and I know, and I encourage Mr. Rothera to speak to the DPW director. They may fall off of his radar, and you'll know when they're going to come out and do the reconstruction. They're going to come out, they're going to paint the street all sorts of Technicolor. It's going to look like Joseph's Code out there. So that's the time. If you see that paint, that's the time to contact them and say, I live here, this is what I see as a concern. They may note a lot of them, but that's also the best time to raise it, because that's when they're looking at where they have to do the work that they have to do, and it'll be fresh in their mind as they start to design it. So, you know, I think that, you know, if Mr. Rothera is going to discuss it with the DPW director, it's great to bring it up tonight. But just for your information, when you do see them start to paint the street and you'll see them walking around with the wheel and the yellow vest. That's the time to also sort of refresh them that you have this concern.
One more question, Mr. Royan?
Yes, the sewer system, I don't know if that's part of it. When the town takes over the road, do they take over the drainage and sewer system on the street too, or is that still the town's responsibility?
I don't know. Don't have a clue on that. I'd have to refer to.
When we take the road, is there a detention pond?
There's drainage on the street. There's
Yes,
grates
catch,
and water goes in
catch
and all that stuff.
basins, pipes, all of that the town will maintain upon
But right
taking
now,
ownership of the road.
It's,
Is there a drainage issue?
no, I'm just wondering who may, I don't wanna be left,
Well, let's look at it this way. Within the next 90 days, the town will be the custodian of the road. So, unless there, if there's, so at that point, we will be maintaining the drainage system. If there were an issue now that were causing significant flooding, I think the DPW would be willing to come out and address something like that. If there isn't an issue, yeah, you can rest assured that upon the town taking the road, it will be something that they'll fold into their maintenance program.
thank you.
Okay. What do we need to do to,
You need to vote to take the money.
Money.
Mr. Chair, before we do that, if you'll permit me, I guess because I'm sure a lot of blame to go around on how the situation developed. I guess at the end of the day, what decision that we make is going to require the town and the taxpayers to pick up the cost of what should have otherwise been a private developer cost. So I just like to have surety that the DPW administration are on board with this and have that in the minutes, I think, so that we have that to fall back on. I'd also like to remind you that I think this board had some time ago asked for policy from the town administration on the acceptance of private streets, both within a subdivision and not within a subdivision, so that we have some guidance when we do make these decisions that, again, are going to cost the taxpayers and the administration money. So
That policy has not been fully formulated.
okay.
We are working on it. I will refer to a letter of February 15th, 2013, from Joanna Paquin, the assistant town engineer. And she indicates, consequently, the Department of Public Works recommends that the road be accepted as a town road. Once the entire length of Old Cart Road is accepted, the town will be able to use remaining surety in addition to the town's roadway reconstruction funds to make the necessary improvements. So they feel that it's part of their general effort. I know in conversations I've had with the DPW director, they're looking at targeting neighborhoods for reconstruction. So they're going and finding the areas that they think are in the most need, proposing that the town accept roads in those areas that are unaccepted. I think he's putting together a package for a number of roads for May of this year to accept, reconstruct using Chapter 90 money over the summer, and that's his unwritten internal policy, and we're working on fleshing out a formal town policy.
is there any, Wendy, do you have anything at all? Paul?
No,
You all set?
that's fine.
Okay, we're gonna make a motion to accept the bond,
To take the bond.
take the bond.
I'd make a motion that we take the bond to be used with the town money to reconstruct the road.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is a vote. We are gonna take the bond. Okay, what else do we have here? Signatures. We have none.
Minutes.
Minutes?
Minutes from the December 10th meeting. Actually, it's from December 2nd and 13th.
We have minutes from the 7th?
No,
It's a stray pinky. Should be December 10th, 2013.
All right. Anybody have any problem with those minutes?
no.
All right. Make a motion to accept the minutes.
2013.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
It is a vote. We accept the minutes.
We don't have to do the 7th yet.
No. Stacy's quick, but not that.
Okay, under, we're gonna just talk about something here, okay, under, whatever we're gonna talk about, it under new business or whatever, but,
There's 4 nurses come in and
I want the board to be,
Thank you, everybody.
okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'll tell you where I'm
We want to make some kind of a motion, okay, that any of the correspondence regarding any projects from henceforth be in our hands no later than the Thursday prior to the meeting. Okay, so we have a definitive time in order to review these prior to the meeting, and we're able to make better decisions that way. I'd like to put this to a motion and a vote, okay, just so that from now on, any of the whatever it be, peer review, whatever, okay, we get notice.
Okay.
Any discussion with it?
Adam,
So, no, you can do that. You can set policies how you'd like.
Jim, if you want to go over Old Cat Road or anybody tomorrow, I'll be around. I'll be down working on the 3-decker. I'd like to take a look at some of these
All right.
Where's the 3?
potholes that a dog's gonna fall in. But, and I'll see what.
I have
You
it.
got his address?
Pardon?
I've got your number, I believe. Why don't you leave your number with, what phone number can be reached at?
Oh, Tommy's phone number, but I don't know what it is.
Okay.
will you
Well-
call him?
What?
You wanna give me yours?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be in contact with you tomorrow sometime.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll tell you where I'll be. Is the 3-decker, when you're going down Stoneville Hill.
Yep.
The first 3-decker on the right, the one we're redoing the whole thing, we tore it all apart.
All right, good. I'll find you.
So, all right.
Good, take care, Frank.
We'll bring a dog. We want to have dogs that tracks people
We'll test the
down.
hole.
So
Okay, go ahead.
My question isn't necessarily about your. You can do that. You can set the policy how you wish. That's something actually Eric and I are going to work on, and we'll get to Eric in a minute. When you say in your hands on Thursday, do you want the packet to physically be at your home on Thursday? Do you want an email on Thursday? Is either acceptable, or do you want it postmarked on Thursday? Because I want to make sure that what we do in my office is appropriate and meets the spirit of what you want.
Right, this is only, I've checked with other planning boards, okay, and their policy is, and I think it's a good policy, that's why I want to adopt it here. Their policy is that by the close of business day, they have to have material in their hand.
Okay.
That's not an email, because emails are easy not to flip it to an email, okay? So it has to be in their hand by close of business Thursday in order to be heard the following Monday or Tuesday, whenever the meeting is.
And that's perfectly acceptable. I just wanted to understand what you wanted from it. I adopted the method that's currently employed in distributing information. It always seemed a little odd to me, but no one had brought up wanting it earlier, so I never pursued it
Well,
very far, but we can certainly do that.
If a person tries to spring
25.
late information on you,
10
okay?
minutes before the meeting.
And then you have to spring it late on us. That person's got to realize that if they don't have it so it can be in our hands by Thursday, they will not be heard on that next meeting.
Oh, I agree. I think it's a wholly reasonable policy. Now, do you wish to not hear them or hear them, not make a decision based on inappropriate amount of time to
Not
review
hear
that
'em.
information.
Not hear them, not hear them. Absolutely, if they miss that deadline, they would have to automatically reschedule that to the next meeting that would be applicable for us to hear them,
That I'll have to check on the legality of,
okay?
because with subdivision control, the applicant is the only one who can choose to continue. The board, the board can say we're not going to make a decision tonight, and they can say fine, and the board can say we'll continue the hearing. It affects the clock. As far as subdivision, there isn't really a state law, so generally what I try to do is apply the subdivision standards to the site plan.
If they know what our policy is, I can understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with it, okay? But if they know what our policy is in the future, then it would behoove them, okay, to...
Correct.
To try to follow the policy,
Mhm.
all right? And it would be hard for us to come to a meeting like that and not have the information well-read.
Mhm.
And that's why I think this is very important. Maybe other people don't think it's important, but I think it is, and I think that it should be put in place, and we should vote on it and make it policy. If there's any portion of that that becomes illegal, okay, then we'll have to go a different route.
And I agree with you from my perspective. If the information is submitted late, I think that there can be value to having the presentation and discussion from the applicant, because what it may do is it may shed light on, and I think that we saw this a little bit with the middle school last week, having the discussion may shed light on the information that was submitted. The way that they read a comment that I submitted to them on the sidewalk was interpreted as I was suggesting something that was on a much larger scale than it was. So again, the board sets the policy, and it's up to you folks. But I think that there may be some value in hearing them with the understanding that the information submitted, it won't be discussed, won't be wholly accepted, and there would be the requirement of additional meetings prior to any vote or conclusion. But that's just my perspective.
And to some degree, I agree with that. And I think maybe what we do is, at the beginning of the meeting, if something is handed to us at the nth hour, and regardless if it is, a statement should be made at the beginning of every meeting. If we just receive the information, do not expect us to be discussing it tonight. We'll discuss other aspects, but we won't be discussing what we were just handed, and not even entertain anything to do with that information.
Normally,
I mean, it's happened
you're
several
a very
times.
smart girl. Normally, I would go along with that, okay? Unfortunately, I've got to stand my ground on this one. I honestly think that there is absolutely no common ground or use for information that has reached us at the last hour, okay? To discuss anything, you don't have a chance to look over any portion of it to make a logical decision, or even you can't enter into a logical discussion with them because you really don't know what is in the paperwork. So by listening to all that and then have to come back 2 weeks later and listen to all that again because they didn't have the paperwork there in time for us to digest some of the stuff that's in it, I honestly think that that's redundant, and it shouldn't happen. And it doesn't happen with other planning boards. So, and I asked them specifically on the other planning boards. I talked to the vice chairman of another local town, and I asked them specifically if in fact they would hear the person but not do anything about the decision. And he said, no, they won't hear it. They will not hear the meeting unless the product is there no later than the end of business day on the Thursday prior to the meeting. So, but it's up to you people. You're the members. I mean, whatever you want to do. I mean,
I think it's. I mean,
it's reasonable.
I think it's a great idea.
It's reasonable. It's just reasonable. That's
I think
all.
it. Yeah. My only comments would be I have no problem with email. If I get an email on Thursday, at least I have the weekend to review it. And it
I'm
gives
just
them
thinking
probably an
about.
extra
You know
2
what I'm thinking
days,
about?
but-
Ronnie Brooks.
Yeah. Sure, we'll get him a
Ronnie's
Gmail
not-
account.
If we could get him,
Well,
if
I
we
mean, you
could get him
it
up
to
with
us
the
both
link.
ways,
maybe.
right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent of email myself. so-
I am too. I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with email, but I was discussing it with Ronnie, and he just has a problem with emails or
Yeah.
something. I don't know what it is. So
That would mean that you'd have to get it by Tuesday to get it out.
Yeah,
in the mail
and you know, I
Thursday.
mean,
that's not a reason. That's
no,
really
that's not
unreasonable.
unreasonable.
Okay?
No, I mean, I think information a week ahead of time. I think what it does is it, in most, if not all cases, it's going to eliminate the 2-week turnaround.
I
Yeah.
have 222 emails.
You're a popular guy.
Yeah, well, I work for the government.
Yeah.
I work for the
So-
Red Cross, so.
So anyway,
Should we then say that the information has to be into Adam by Tuesday of the following week? Is that
Yeah,
what
I mean,
it
I would have it
eliminates
in by
the confusion?
noon by Tuesday, the day prior. Or
however
noon,
you want to
noon by
word
Tuesday,
it,
the week
however you
prior.
want to word it, it's all right with me. But something's got to be set in place, okay? Because this
Yeah.
getting
Well,
stuff
and
to
and
last
sort
minute
of
is-
further.
It's going to make it easier on you. Too.
Yes, no,
I'm-
and I actually want to touch on further to this point. We have a series of rules and regulations for site plan and subdivision that I'm not sure when they were written, but I would like to update them and sort of present them to the board because you guys have to accept them, or you folks, and this would be something that I would like to include in that, and quite honestly, I think that it's fair for you guys to have a week to review this kind of stuff, so that I would hopefully be sending it out the Friday, so you'd have it a minimum a week before your meeting, and that would sort of
I thought about
move things.
I thought about that, but you know, to be fair to all parties
Mhm.
involved, okay, that's why I picked a day of Thursday
Well, and I think
before the meeting.
to
okay?
take it to an even larger degree, I think what I'd ultimately like to do is set up a calendar of these are our standard meeting dates. Here's our filing deadlines. If it's not in the office by the filing deadline,
You will not be heard.
And
Yeah,
that would be given
yeah.
as a
Right.
matter of course.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
I agree
That
with
would be
that, yeah.
posted on the website. It would be
Yeah.
available for hard copy, and that would sort of eliminate any of the issue.
Yeah.
The half-dead
Somebody
fly.
make a
Want me to
motion
hit 'em?
that would make sense here.
Yeah.
You,
Make the motion that we we set a deadline of the Tuesday before, or 7 days before our next meeting at noon, that the information be submitted to the planning department for distribution to the board members.
So do we have it by Thursday, closing of the day?
Right.
Yeah.
So we have it by the Thursday, before the meeting to review. Is that right?
yeah.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Second it.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it is a vote, so that would be part of the new. One other thing, I know you'd like to get out of here, but one other thing that Paul and I today took a ride up Masonic Road,
Masonic Circle?
Masonic Circle, yes. You like my words. So, politically correct. So anyway, we took a ride up there and we looked the situation over. We all know that the school department is trying their best to get things done as fast as they possibly can, on-site and off-site. Okay, right now they're working on a project for us off-site. Rather than have the school committee spend a ton of time and money trying to redesign West Street, we wanted to know if one of their objectives could be to have all traffic going onto the middle school site be done on Masonic Circle.
No.
Well, okay.
And I can-
There is another parcel, okay, there's another parcel of land, okay, that goes between Perros and the Masonic Temple, okay?
Mhm.
That could also be used as a roadway to the middle school. I think that every option should be explored for an alternative route to that school.
Okay, and I'll explain why I was so quick to say no. The traffic study that they did, the intersection at Masonic Circle and Southbridge Street would not function adequately without a light
Without a
to
traffic
allow
signal.
people in and out.
Okay?
The amount of traffic does not meet the Mass DOT warrants in any way, shape, or form to produce a traffic signal.
Mm-hmm.
So you are there's just no way to make it work in a functional manner. Additionally, I had a meeting with the school department today, and they have already begun substantial work on the West Street project, and they are very close to coming to a solution that will satisfy the DPW director. So it's.
Did you also, we got some vibrations, okay, and some input from the police chief too.
He was also at the meeting.
Okay. The initial remarks that were made, I think, were not very good regarding the use of West Street.
He has concerns about pedestrian traffic, the presence of large trucks, and the impact that that would have on said pedestrian traffic. I think that the board should be careful in discussing this outside of the public hearing for the project.
I think
And
that the board,
without-
I think the board, Adam, okay, should express any concerns that they have and have them directed to the school building committee, so that if there is any holdup on one side, it can be taken care of on the other. And I think by doing that, you're doing the school committee a justice that normally wouldn't be done to them, okay? And
You're correct that you can express it, but I think that the board as a whole, discussing it outside the bounds of the public hearing for the project without the ability of the applicant to hear the information firsthand, respond, or intake, could be construed as a possible or perceived violation of their rights through the open meeting law for the hearing.
I'll
So
take my chance on that one.
and I'm-
Listen, what I want you to do is, I want a letter sent, I would like a letter sent to the school committee, okay? Explaining to them that they should look at all other means of entrance and exit to that parcel, including West Street, but not limiting it to West Street.
And that
So-
letter would be under whose signature?
Mine,
Okay, so you're going to send the letter?
I would be glad to.
Okay. As an individual citizen?
Do I have any other people that would want me to send that letter?
Go ahead. I mean, you're expressing your personal opinion. We all have personal opinions. I don't like the West Street project at this point.
But it just say,
I think
concern
I
is
think what I'm saying
following
is
up on
Following
the
the
training
open-
that we did last
right,
time.
Correct.
Just-
Meeting
We can't
law.
deliberate outside.
correct.
Right.
And
but what I'm trying to
Okay.
do, what I'm trying to do here, okay, is I'm trying not to have the school committee, okay, what I'm trying to do is not to have the school committee spend a ton of money,
Yeah.
okay, on one project alone
Yep.
without, hitting both options on that, just in case one fails.
And
All I'm trying to do, okay, is to save them all the expense involved, okay, in doing that.
can't Jim? Can't
Yes,
reach
he-
out to the applicant.
He can.
Have a call
As
with
an
them.
individual board member, as an
Yeah.
individual citizen, you can reach out. If you wish to send it as the chair of the planning board or as the planning board as a whole, I think that there needs to be a vote of the board to support that signature or the use of the letterhead, because if it's sent as official correspondence from the planning board, it's representing that the board as a whole or as a majority supports that position. And I'm not saying they do or don't, but I just want to make sure that everything is above board so that they can't come back and say, the planning board forced us to do this, the
This
planning
is
board
not,
forced us to do that.
you know as well as I do, the suggestion I made, okay, is not in any way to be misconstrued with me telling the school department to do anything, other than to have an open mind and not spend all your money on one side if another project or another partial of that project can work, okay? So, I mean, that's why, and again, one of the reasons I got this information is because I understood that there's other town officials that have a problem with that. And I don't want the project to be held up because of the fact that, there might be other
I
issues.
think you're more.
Yeah,
If
here
I
you-
understand from the training, like you can reach out to
Correct.
them directly and have it. And I think you're warranted.
And what you and I understand, I don't disagree with what you're saying as far as your understanding. I have a similar understanding, but us being on the same page doesn't mean the recipient of the letter necessarily reads it the same way. So I just want to be sure that,
This is help, not hindrance.
and I understand that. And I don't think that you're trying to hinder, but I just want it to be clear that everything is above board so that they can't come back and say, well,
I
we
know.
understood it this way,
Yeah.
regardless of what the intent was.
All right, we all set?
I do have some new, oh, you're gonna make a
Go ahead.
motion? I have some new business.
No, go ahead.
Um,
I'll send a
you-
letter on my own. We don't need a motion for
Okay,
that.
you probably noticed this gentleman sitting next to me.
How you
This
doing?
is Eric Lesperance. He's the assistant town planner now. He'll be here for 19 hours a week. He'll be working on lots of different stuff. You'll see a little bit more of him. He'll be doing some economic development, some policy stuff for the board. Hopefully we'll be looking at some bylaws. Right now he's working on the open space plan, so he's here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So if you have questions, don't be shy to drop by and ask him or bug him. And if he doesn't know the answer, he'll come into me, and you're more than welcome to come see me too. What's that?
Somebody asked about it.
Yeah. Welcome aboard, Eric.
Appreciate it. We'll find stuff for you to do.
Okay,
All right.
I'd make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.